Hello students, welcome to our channel. Today's topic is PHP with MySQL. So very first, let's briefly understand what is MySQL. MySQL is world's most popular open source web-based embedded database application. MySQL is fast, easy to use relational database management system used in small and big businesses. It is developed and marketed and supported by MySQL, which is a Swedish company. MySQL works on many operating systems and with many languages including Perl, PHP, C, C++, Java, etc. PHP provides various functions to access MySQL database and to manipulate data records inside MySQL database. You would require to call PHP functions in the same way you call any other PHP function. Basic PHP MySQL functions require following steps. Very first, connecting to a database. Select appropriate database that you want to work upon. Running a query, using result of a query, closing the connection. Original functions starts with MySQL, while improved version of PHP 5 starts with MySQLi underscore. To create database connection, the function is MySQLi underscore connect, which requires 3 arguments: server name, username, and password. Server default is the string localhost, username is the name of the user, and password. Here, both examples are given for Mac users, Window users, and the users using WAMP, XAMPP, or MEMP, with a default password blank. The function is MySQLi underscore connect, passed with 3 arguments. First is localhost, that is server name, username is root, and password is blank. If the function gets executed successfully, the resultant variable $cone will hold the connection link. The sample connection code is given. First of all, PHP tag is started. Next, the function that used to create a connection, MySQLi underscore connect, is used. Here we have passed 3 arguments. First is host name, second username, and third password. If this function executes correctly without any error, the $cone resultant variable will hold the connection link. Or if during execution, if any error occurs, the die function will execute. Die function is the equivalent of exit function. It will close the PHP connection string. Die function takes 2 arguments. Here the first is string message, error message that you want to display, and we have concatenate MySQLi underscore error function with it that will again display the error message but generated by the PHP. On successful execution, will print simple message successful connection, and at the last we are closing the MySQL connection. Next step is selecting a database. To select the database, function MySQLi underscore select underscore db is used with 2 parameters, 2 arguments. First is connection variable that we have used $cone in our previous slide example, and the second is name of the database that you want to operate upon. Select a database given by the string name. The connection variable is required. One example is given, MySQLi underscore select underscore db. The connection link variable is $cone, so we have passed $cone, and the database we want to use is LabUser. Here you can pass anything, the name of the database you want to work with. Next is connect and select database code. The previous both slides code is given here at once. The code remains the same. Next functions are for error messaging. If we want to display any error message, the function MySQLi underscore error with connection variable passed as an argument is used. It will return an error string or error number. Connection is optional with last open connection used if none supplied. Empty string is returned if there is no error. It means it will return an empty string if no error occurs. For example, function is used with $cone variable. Next step, after you have created a successfully connection with MySQL, Once you have selected database, the next step is to define the query, to form a query. To execute any SQL statement, you require function called MySQLi_query. It will require two arguments. One is connection variable and second is the query that you want to execute. Query could be anything of insert, update, select and delete. Makes a select query. Query is a string for the MySQL query. Semicolon should not be used to terminate query. Query used valid SQL command. Valid SQL commands could be anything: insert, update, select and delete. For example, here we have taken select query example. The query is select surname from student. Student is the name of the table and surname is the column or field in student table. The whole query will return the surnames of the students' data stored in student named table. The resultant data will be retrieved in $query variable. $result equals to MySQLi_query. Again, this variable requires two parameters. One is connection variable, that is $con, and second is the query that you want to execute. The whole example is given below. PHP text started $con equals to MySQLi_connect. This is used to create the connection, or die function will execute if any error occurs, and it will stop the PHP script's execution. Next step is selecting database. So we are using MySQLi_select_db. Here we are using $con variable as a connection variable, and the database is lab user. Next step is we are storing entire select query in $query variable. The query is select surname from student. Next step is to execute the select query that is stored in $query variable. So we are using MySQLi_query function with $con variable and $query variable, which holds the entire query. On successful execution of the all above statements, will print simple message that displayed as a successful query, and at the last we are closing the connection with MySQLi_close function, which again requires the connection link variable. If you don't pass any argument, the current open connection will be terminated. To close the connection, there are function used MySQLi_connection and with one parameter $con. Next function is MySQL_free_result. This function frees up the memories during a program. Other MySQL functions are MySQLi_num_rows, which accepts one argument resultant variable. The function will return the number of rows selected by the select query, or number of rows returned by the select query. So the return type is integer. It will return a number of records. Next function is MySQLi_fetch_row. It will again take one argument, which is the resultant variable. Each call returns the next row as an indexed arrow. Mark one thing, that this function will return only a row of the data, not the entire rows. There is difference between number of rows and fetch row. Fetch row will fetch a row only, while number of rows will return the number of records stored in resultant variable. Example is given. First of all, we have taken MySQLi_query. The very first argument is connection variable and second argument is query. Here we are passing the query as select star from module. This query will return all the records stored in module named table. For example, if there are 50 records, it will return 50 records. If there are 100 records, it will return 100 all records. And the resultant data will be stored in $result variable. Next, $num equals to MySQL_num_rows. This function will count the number of rows stored in $result, that is temporarily hold the result of the module table data. the number will be stored in $num variable. $num equals to MySQL underscore num underscore rows. Next is we are using for loop. For loop starts with one value 1, and it will iterate up to the number of rows that is stored in $num variable. For example, if module table has 5 records, the loop will iterate up to 5. For example, if module table has 10 records, the loop will iterate up to 10, starting with 1 up to the $num variable hold that number, and $i++ will increment each time with value 1. In for loop, $row equals to MySQL underscore fetch underscore row of $result. This function will fetch a row at a time. This function will fetch only a single row at a time from $result resultant variable which holds the module table's data. Next, we are printing the records echo $row of 0 and concat with blank space and $row of 1. Here $row of 0 and $row of 1 is the filled column index. Module columns index. 0th index means first column and first index means second column. Next function is MySQL underscore affected underscore rows. As the name suggests, the function is used to count the number of rows affected by the query. Query could be anything: insert, update, or delete. It will return an integer value, the number of records get affected by the SQL query. Next function is MySQL underscore free underscore result, which frees the memory occupied by resultant variable. Resultant variable is the resultant variable that holds the record. Other MySQL functions. The next function is MySQL underscore num underscore fields, which will again return the number of fields stored in a table. For example, student table has 5 fields, it will return 5. For example, if customer table has 10 fields, it will return 10. One example is given: $res, that is result, equals to MySQL underscore query. First argument is connection link variable and second argument is the query that you want to execute. Here we are using query as a select star from module. This query will return the entire records stored in module named table, and the entire records will be now stored in $res variable. Next step, $num fields equals to MySQL underscore num underscore fields. This function will return the number of fields, the number of columns stored in $res, ultimately the number of fields in module table. And now we are printing it, so echo number of fields in module table is concatenating it with a $number fields. Next function is MySQL underscore fetch underscore array. This function returns a row information as an array. Mark this thing, it will return only a row, the single record, as an array. For example, $result equals to MySQL underscore query. The first argument is connection link variable con, second is query. Next step, we are using while loop. $row equals to MySQL underscore fetch underscore array of $result and echo $row of module code, concatenating it with a blank space and then $row of module name. Here module code and module name are fields of module table which will ultimately print the data. Function returns true while a row is fetched, and false when there are no rows available. Function will fetch an array as associative or sequential.